Good evening. Welcome into the Inquirer podcast. It's Jeremy Werner with Derek Piper here as we just witnessed Illinois win its second Big Ten tournament championship as they defeat the Wisconsin Badgers 93-87. Terrence Shannon with an epic Big Ten tournament, 34 points. That's a title game record in the Big Ten Conference tournament. Marcus Domask dominates his home state, Wisconsin Badgers, once again with 26 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds. But Derek, this was another one where Illinois overcomes a 10-point, double-digit second-half deficit to come back and win this one. They had a script here today. So we're going to talk about that. We'll also, of course, talk about it's Selection Sunday. And right after Illinois cuts down the nets, it's kind of weird how this happens, but Illinois cuts down the nets and they look up at the screen. And there's the number 3 seed in the East region. They can right off the bat. We'll break down that matchup with Morehead State. BYU is a strong 6 seed in this bracket, but Illinois does get in the bottom half of the bracket in the same region as UConn and number 2 seed Iowa State. So, but first, Eric, we have a phenomenal basketball game and a phenomenal weekend. I want to start there. I love the Big Ten tournament. Like, it's just a phenomenal weekend of games here. Obviously, it worked out really well for Illinois, but Minnesota was a good host. It was a long drive for a lot of people, but this was a lot of fun watching a special run by this Illini team.
High-level entertainment, especially in this game. Two very, very good teams. Wisconsin obviously is very, very different than they were February, early part of March as they closed out the regular season, having only won 3 of their previous 11 games coming into this weekend. But A.J. Storr, the way he was playing, Chucky Hepburn, Illinois had their hands full, but they, to their credit, were able to withstand and weather another storm. Some of it's self-inflicted, as we talk about comebacks against Ohio State and Nebraska, and you can bring this one in there as well, but it shows how just dynamic this offense is, that a 10-point deficit really can be erased almost at the snap of a finger with the way Illinois can score it. Of course, Terrence Shannon playing at this level is a really big part of that. Love to see Marcus Domask. I wrote about him going into this game. I thought that the matchup against Wisconsin yet again will be beneficial for him to have a bounce back. He did that not only with points, but similar to Nebraska in the second half, racking up those assists and rebounds again. I mean, he's once again in triple-double range. So, and then just down the stretch, like you said, high-level game, back and forth, a Klesmit 3 here, Shannon answer. Storr was really good, and it was just one of those ball games that was down to the wire and crowd in it. And what more could you ask for going right into that selection show? So, and then to see the confetti, to see the trophy and cutting the nets and whatnot. I mean, that's a big credit to Brad Underwood to have 3 Big Ten championships in 4 years, and for Coleman to be a part of all of those, and obviously to make the pieces fit together to get the most out of this team this year too. So still work to be done, but there is something to be said for winning your last 3 games, really winning 7 of your last 8, and they close it out strong. They go 4-1 in their last 5, and 4 of those are all quad 1 wins. So big credit to Illinois, and a 3 seed's a really nice landing spot for this squad.
Yeah, I want to get to what was so encouraging about this week, and we're going to try to keep the noise as low as possible if they're breaking down everything here at the Big Ten tournament. But we appreciate everybody that's joining us on the live YouTube podcast here. Hit that like button while you're here. Subscribe to us. Hit that notifications bell. We appreciate all your support. We'll get to the NCAA tournament draw, but we just want to give this game and this weekend its due, because this was something that this team that Brad Underwood said is special several times in his post-game press conference. 26 wins. It's been a long time since the Illinois team won 26 games. That was the D. Brown, James Augustine year in 2006. But Big Ten titles are becoming regular here, Derek. We remember leaving here on Wednesdays and Thursdays of the Big Ten tournament because Illinois would get a 10, 11, 12 seed, whatever it was. Brad Underwood has gotten this program back to where it wins championships in the Big Ten. And don't tell me that these conference tournaments don't matter. They matter to teams. When they get here, it matters. Now, of course, the NCAA tournament stuff, that matters more. Like most people would take a Sweet 16 Elite Eight over a Big Ten tournament championship. But these are banners, man, that hang forever. And no matter what happens in the next couple of weeks, we know that's where the ultimate legacy of this team lies. This team had a great weekend. They were able to avoid Purdue, of course, but they went through three teams that were playing really good basketball. Obviously, Ohio State was fighting for its NCAA tournament lives, just like Iowa was a couple games ago. Then Nebraska had a heater, and you were down 15 to them in the second half. You're able to come back and win. And then Wisconsin, 10-point lead in that second half. And to show the resilience that they did, this was a memorable weekend. So no matter what, this team, which is one of Brad Underwood's best teams, one of the best teams of the last 2 decades for Illinois basketball, this team will have that banner hang at State Farm Center, Derek.
Yeah, big deal. Big deal to have the hardware, to have the banner, to be remembered by this accomplishment. And, of course, they finished second in the Big Ten in the regular season, 14 wins. So it's not like it was one fluky run in a weekend here in Minneapolis. They put together a really nice body of work, and that's how you get, obviously, the 3 seed. And they'd love to add to that with getting that second weekend appearance. And, of course, they'll be shooting for more. I know that you had the quote from Brad Underwood about he's not just looking for a second weekend cameo. He wants the whole thing, the national championship. Told the fans afterwards that we got 6 more of these. So, yeah, we'll see. This team has a high ceiling, but, yeah, it is important to remember. And it's you and I have not that the fans don't understand it as well as we do, but having covered the team closely through all those years when they weren't in the mix, when competing in the top of the Big Ten seemed like a distant memory for this program, and you wondered when they get back, who would bring it back. And Josh Whitman hired the right guy in Brad Underwood. He's got this team and this program back in a position. I was talking to Joey Wagner about this as well. It's like there was a big task on Brad's shoulders where obviously he hit home runs, bringing in Ayo Dosunmu and bringing in Kofi Coburn. But what would Illinois basketball look like after those All-Americans cycled out of the program? Obviously, when Ayo left, they still won a regular season championship with Kofi. And then last year, it wasn't good enough. They still made the tournament. It's not bad to have a down year and be a 9 seed. But then just 1 year later to be back in a situation where you're again being crowned as a champion. That says a lot about Brad. It says a lot about bringing in the right pieces, blending not only in terms of on-court stuff, but personalities, motivation, guys that want to win. And that's something that Illinois, as far as the consistency, as far as setting a standard, that's what goes into it. Being able to do it more years than not, and more years than not, Illinois is one of, if not the best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and to that point, Coleman Hawkins said, maybe we're not thought of as the best team in the Big Ten. Now, I think most people think of them as a top-tier team, but Illinois and Purdue have 3 Big Ten rings or championships over the last 4 years. So it's Illinois and Purdue. Those are the 2 best programs. Obviously, Purdue's maybe had the higher ceiling with 2 back-to-back number 1 seeds here, but Illinois is there. It's Illinois, Purdue. They are where Michigan State was for so long, right? So it's really impressive what they're able to do. But most importantly, Derek, probably is that they're playing their best ball potentially of the year. Now, they still don't have that marquee quad 1A win, though I think Wisconsin is pretty close to that. And they beat them twice. Illinois is now on 8 straight against the Wisconsin Badgers. So they got that feather in the cap, 8 straight against Nebraska as well. But Terrence Shannon is just at another level. 102 points over 3 games, was 1 point away from tying Keegan Murray's record in a Big Ten tournament for most points. And he played 1 fewer game than Keegan when Iowa made that run a couple years ago. He's just played at an All-American level. One of the best players in college basketball. As I've said, I think he's the best player in college basketball over the last, 6 weeks. He's averaging about 28 points during that time. But Marcus Damask just dominated in this one. But you just got other people to step up. Ty Rodgers had a great tournament. Coleman Hawkins, I know offensively wasn't all that great, but I thought he was really impactful defensively. Dane Danger with 9 points today off the bench was really big, 7 rebounds as well. So you had guys step up, Derek, around those guys to be tertiary scorers, but you got 2 dudes. And you found a way to be resilient, right? Like you could certainly criticize coming out flat the first 2 games. That did not happen today, but defensively they have some issues, but this team's got some toughness. And Coleman said, like after Max Klesma hit those threes, last year they probably wouldn't have come back from that. And early in this year, I don't know if they would have come back from it, but this team right now, like there's an edge to him, and it starts with Terrence Shannon Jr.
Assertiveness, just confidence, and knowing that no one can really stop him. He knows it. The teammates around him know it, and the opponent knows it too. So that's just something where he's been in just a special realm, special mode right now. And of course, if he takes and leads this team on that run to the Sweet 16 and beyond, and obviously with him at the forefront, gives Illinois a chance at a Final Four, and he'll enter a really elite company as far as Illinois basketball players. But in the meantime, yeah, this weekend he was phenomenal, and really was able to get Illinois through some lulls, especially in the first two games. I thought today was different to me. Today wasn't Illinois being flat or sleepwalking. Today was Wisconsin coming out and playing really good ball and making shots. And the only really gripe I'd have with Illinois as far as what they gave up to Wisconsin was the second chance points. I think them getting beat up a little bit on the glass was something I'd like to be better at. But for the most part, that was two teams playing at a high level. Illinois was able to, once they were down 10, to erase it pretty quickly. And, yeah, I mean, Marcus, who had a rough night against Ohio State, is probably his worst game of the season. I think it was on paper, obviously, that by the end of the weekend when they needed it, he was really, really good. And having the matchup against Klesmet, hitting turnarounds, going to the basket, those are big plays. But, yeah, I mean, Ty, wow, like his rebounding, his impact on winning, those are the things you thought about when Illinois recruited him, when they saw that, hey, I mean, this is a Team USA player who isn't just some flashy scorer or whatnot. He's a guy that just does the other things that you can put around those points getters and whatnot to make it a winning formula. So him attacking the glass like he did, Dane coming in and giving you real productive minutes. The fact that you would not have been able to tell me earlier in the season that down the stretch of a Big Ten tournament championship that Coleman and Dane are sharing the court together. Like I would not have believed you, but Dane has earned that. Dane has definitely earned that. I agree with you. You know, Coleman had a huge block late in that game in the second half, and we know what he can do defensively. I thought Luke still comes in and gave you good energy, and I think he's built some confidence here of late. So it's a team that's got a collection of pieces. They obviously blend and work really well offensively, and they'll be a monster for anybody to try to slow down. And we've seen stretches defensively where they've been able to get some key stops. So just a great game, and to beat Wisconsin playing like that's more of the version of Wisconsin that was projected on the 2 line back in January than the one that we saw down the stretch of the regular season.
AJ Storr looked like an NBA player, right? Like he looks like Terrence Shannon a couple years ago potentially, or maybe even last year. Terrence Shannon, like he's playing at a ridiculously high level. For me, it's Chucky Hepburn. Like he's got an aggressiveness to him. Coleman even mentioned it at the podium. He goes, last time we played them, I don't know why he wasn't more aggressive. They took a while to get Crowell going, but Klesmet's a bucket getter, man. 16 points, 4 or 6 from 3, hit some clutch ones. That's why this was so much fun, because it was two good teams playing really good basketball, and Illinois came out on top. And this looks like it could be round of 32, Sweet 16 type game. And Illinois had those. It feels like the last 5 games here. Derek, like you've had teams that are desperate with Iowa and Ohio State. I guess the last 4 games, Iowa and Ohio State had to win, and those teams are capable of being like early round games for you, right? And then you're able to beat Nebraska, an 8-9 seed, right? And then you're able to beat Wisconsin, a 5 seed. This is what you have to do to advance in the NCAA tournament, and that's why it's so encouraging. Is it wasn't always pretty, but they found ways, and sometimes it was really pretty, because what Terrence Shannon, Marcus Damask were able to do, what Wisconsin was able to do, what Nebraska did in the first half, they faced adversity, and they found a way not to just fold. And it feels like last 2 years of the NCAA tournament, we saw some Illinois teams, or 3 years, seen Illinois teams fold, and that certainly did not happen this weekend.
Yeah, it's the reason I think that Brad, you said it before, he takes the microphone, says I've looked at this as my most connected team. And I think that you got to be able to be connected when you go through those moments of adversity. I think to have an older team that creates the poise where you don't panic, where you don't get off track and just play out of character when you are playing from behind. Again, I think Ohio State, Nebraska was just a matter of you got to click in and just compete at your highest level, play with some desperation, some urgency, and once they did, and they they took control of the game, especially the Nebraska game when Ohio State went down to the wire, but Illinois got it done today. But it was a situation with Nebraska coming out, and Crowell was making plays early, making shots, buries a three. Hepburn, who was quiet for, I don't think he scored the first 13 minutes or so of that game. He was rolling there, and Klesman's hitting threes. Like, Wisconsin had it going, and Illinois could have, especially Wisconsin probably having the edge with the crowd. They definitely did. Not saying Illinois was going to go away and die, but it was something where they were a little bit of in a danger zone there. But to be able to click back into place, you think about next week, and if you get to the second weekend, there'll be some real moments of your season's on the line. How are you going to respond? Can you stay poised? Can you make the plays that are necessary to get back, eye level with the team, to push forward and be able to advance? And what they've shown here recently is encouraging. When it matters most, they can rise to the occasion. I think you might still be on mute.
Sorry, Derek. I'm still getting used to this thing. But what's really impressive to me is Brad, I think, is really confident in this team because of his offense. He's talked about how maybe it's offense that wins championships now, and this clearly is one of the best offensive teams. They just get so many easy buckets because of Terrence Shannon, because of Marcus Damask. And those two guys combined today for 24 of 27 from the free throw line. Illinois was 17 of 18 from the free throw line. I don't think any Illinois fan should be complaining about the refs after this game. There were a couple calls. I do think Illinois got some star calls in that game, but those guys forced that action. And Marcus Damask, so many easy buckets at the rim in that booty ball. And when Wisconsin double teamed him finally, he found the open guys with all those passes. And Terrence was just in aggressive mode, man. He draws probably 10 plus fouls again today. But I got to go back here and look how many free throws he shot this weekend. 44. Let me see here. 44 free throws he shot this weekend, Derek, and he made 38 of them. Like 38 points at the foul line. That's just unbelievable. Like it just makes it's such a valuable thing when he get that many easy points at the line. One, he gets there. Two, he makes them. So it's just one thing I noticed all weekend. It's just his ability to get to the free throw line. Marcus today to be able to do that. When you got guys that can do that, that's just a tough draw for any team that would be playing here.
Right. Yeah. That's a huge part of Terrence's value is the fact that he draws fouls at that rate, and he's essentially an 80% career free throw shooter. So I know that across the Big Ten, there's a lot of discourse about Edey and the amount of fouls he gets. And I'm not saying that they're all the same in terms of, I do think there's probably more prominent or easier to circle examples where Edey maybe is getting a favorable whistle. But anybody that's in the way of Terrence between him and the rim, if you try to take a charge or anything, you're most likely going to get that blocking foul if there's going to be a call. So he's been able to just put fouls on people at a high rate, get to the free throw line and step up and make those. Marcus obviously is backing dudes down and can get them in the air too. He was able to do that. And speaking of which, even Dane had a nice pump fake on Crowell for a big and one as well. So big difference. Last year Illinois was terrible at the free throw line. This year they're better, but they're getting there at a high rate. And I'm sure it is a nice flip of the script because I know that we have maybe more of a honed in focus on what the Illinois fan base is saying about the refs, but the last two fan bases that you played were pretty, maybe even three, the last three that were not happy about the number of free throws for Illinois and whatnot, but that shows a team that's physical, a team that gets to the rim, and an overwhelming physical presence in Terrence Shannon that just nobody else has that on the perimeter like that.
I think, Derek, that this was destined for Illinois to win this because usually when we come to the Big Ten events, they have the Diet Sunkiss. And I always look forward to that because I never see any Diet Sunkiss. This year, they had the Orange Crush, Zero Sugar. So when I got here and I saw that, I was like, I'm going to be crushing a lot of those crushes because it's delicious. Terrible probably for me, but I think that was a sign. Also, I have to point this out. Our boy Dom, who's been on Brad Underwood for years, this message. Congratulations, Brad. You proved me wrong. I think Brad is the best coach in the Big Ten. Now let's just get to the Sweet 16. I do think it's him and Matt Painter clearly are doing the best thing. Just on that conversation, what a masterful roster building job that he did in the offseason. And he's getting his team to play its best ball right now. Like, to have Dane Danger and to be able, and a lot of Dane gets that credit, right? But to have Dane Danger ready to make this kind of impact, have Luke Goody ready to make this impact this weekend, to lead Shannon through this year, and to get the most out of Marcus Damask with the offense you're running. Quincy's played some of his best ball of his career with Illinois. Just a phenomenal coaching job. He credited Josh Whitman a lot in the administration in the post-game press conference. He said, coaches win games, administrations win championships. So he shouted out, I think he's happy about his salary, of course, but I think he's happy about his facilities, very much so. He's happy about the NIL operation that Illinois has to run. They're a big-time program right now because of all of that, because of the talent they get, the coaches they have, the administration they have. So this was a fun weekend for Illinois, Derek. And any thoughts before we look forward to what most people care about, which is this NCAA tournament draw?
You mean Brad's not going to Louisville? That's a joke, guys. It's a joke. Okay. But yeah, no doubt with the roster building, and it's a really talented roster. You think about, Luke's a 4-star kid out of Indiana, and Dane's a former top 100, at one time a top 50 guy in Minnesota. Of course, is a transfer, but just to have those type of pieces they're coming off the bench for you, and of course to get the older guys like a Damask, who I just think not only with talent, it's talent, but it's also guys that fit really easily into roles, and we're about winning, and we're okay with it being different guys' nights, and being able to say, okay, Quincy Guerrier in his last season in college basketball doesn't have to come in and try to be something he's not. I thought at Oregon he was, as someone who follows recruitment, he was trying to be a wing. He was trying to show that he could do different things that he had shown at Syracuse. By the time now that he's in the portal again, he just wanted to win. He wanted to come in and play for someone that he was familiar with and had a good relationship, and wanted to win. Marcus Damask wants to go to the tournament and wants to talk about yesterday how he's never gotten a ring in his college career. Now he's going to get one. So all of that together, Coleman too, someone that's been part of this change with Brad through the entirety of the last 4 years, and that's all Coleman knows. And going forward for recruits that are going to come in, that's all the Illinois recruits are going to know, is that Illinois is a top level Big Ten team and one that has won some championships. Now, yes, as we're going to get to, let's see if it can go a step further in the NCAA tournament. That's what people are wanting. Dom can say what he wants right now. If they lose in the first or second game, we all know he and many other people are going to be singing a different tune. But I do like the draw for Illinois. It's kind of a teaser, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, we will get into that. Send your questions. We'll get to those. You got any super chats? We always appreciate those. We'll break down the NCAA tournament draw for Illinois, the number 3 seed in the East region. First time they've been in the bottom of the bracket for a while. They don't often get there. But first, let's hear from one of our great sponsors for the Illini Inquirer podcast.
Episode of the Illini Inquirer podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. What's the first thing you'd do if you had an extra hour in your day? Man, that sounds like a gift, doesn't it? I'd go for a walk, maybe read, like an actual book, not tweets and sports articles. That's stuff I would do. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is know what's important to you and to make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Illini today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Illini.
All right, Derek, let's dive into Illinois being the 3 seed in the NCAA tournament's East region. I'd love to say we're shipping up to Boston, but first they have to win 2 games here in the first round. Omaha, Illinois heading to Omaha, short drive for most Illini fans. You can do a day trip out of it at least. So it's not Spokane. That's what we are happy about. It's not Salt Lake City all the way out there. So a drivable distance for an Illini fan base to show up. Iowa State is in this region as well for Illinois if they get to the Sweet 16. But they get Morehead State, the champion out of the Ohio Valley Conference. As you'd expect from a mid-major, shoot a lot of threes. They make a lot of threes, and they are pretty good defensively from stopping teams at threes. And they got an all-conference player, Derek, that averages about 21 and 10. So just to get people behind the scenes, we see the draw. We're writing stories. We get to the locker room. We have not broken this down in depth quite yet, but just what are your thoughts on getting that as your first round game? And if Illinois can get past them, they got BYU, which I saw was the 17 overall seed, but was a 6 seed, probably more of a 5 seed kind of caliber, kind of a team, as well as Duquesne, which is the number 11 seed, won the A-10 this year.
Yeah, I think that as you look at it, of course, you get the benefit where you have the 3 seeds, more favorable path in terms of your first matchup, your second matchup, and the fact you're in the East region, you don't have to worry maybe about seeing UConn quite in the Sweet 16, although you'd love to probably face them, assuming they're probably going to be there in the Elite Eight. And boy, that'd be fun. TD Garden in Boston. Let's get that thing on. But until leading up to that, Morehead State, like you mentioned, I know they did take Indiana to the wire and led in the second half at Assembly Hall. Indiana ends up pulling that thing out. I know Indiana had obviously a bad year, number one. Number two, just messing around with some teams like Army, who almost beat them on their home court. That just kind of was what their MO was in the early portion of the schedule. But Morehead State, when they played at Penn State, lost by 23, I believe. They played at Purdue, they lost by 30. So they do have a couple of talented guys, a guard that put up 30 at Indiana, and then Riley Minix, who's a 6'7" forward who averages about 20 and 10 for them. It is, like you mentioned, when you look at just surface level of Ken Pop stats, the top 25 in the country in 3-point rate. So they want to take threes, and usually that's a big part of any recipe for an upset, where you have those mid-major, low-major teams that get hot from three on a given day, and maybe that can take down a Goliath, so to speak. But Illinois, obviously, as we know, they've always been really good at limiting 3-point attempts, and I'll dive into the film a little bit more. I'd probably go back and watch the OVC championship, which I didn't catch, surprisingly enough. I'd be surprised if they have anybody that looks even capable of slowing down Terrence Shannon and Marcus Damask. That's going to be a big task for anybody, especially those first round and even in the second round.
Yeah, anything can happen. And Illinois fans, I remember a number 3 seed getting upset, 14 seed Austin Peay, when Kendall Gill was part there for Illinois. Like it is possible. So you can't overlook any opponent. Illinois needs to show up and be focused and tuned to the scouting report, because any team is capable of beating anybody. You don't want to be that 3 seed who gets upset by a 14. But you look at the teams they actually played, the actual big teams. Alabama 105-73 in the opener. Illinois got an offense similar to Alabama in its explosiveness. Purdue, 87-57. We've seen Illinois, what they did with Purdue. Penn State, 74-51. You mentioned Indiana. Illinois got a way better offense, obviously, than that. They didn't play another top 100 team and barely played any top 200 KenPom teams the rest of the season. So it's a good mid-major team from a bad conference in the Ohio Valley. When I got Marcus Damask and Terrence Shannon Jr., I feel really confident. I feel really confident. I feel confident about how Illinois has the pieces, whether it's a Coleman Hawkins game, Dane Danger game. I just feel confident, Derek, that this team will take care of business in the first round. Of course, you have to bring it. But let's get to that potential second round matchup where BYU is the number 17 overall seed, comes from a very good conference. Most people think the best conference in college basketball in the Big 12. Really good offensively, number 11 offensive efficiency in the country, 48th in defense. What do you think about that potential second round matchup? Because that's where Illinois fans want to go, Derek, is get us to the second weekend, then we'll take our chances with this talented team.
If you like games pushing 85, 90, Illinois BYU is for you. Two teams that are elite offensively. BYU all season long has been in that top 10, top 15 range in terms of their offensive metrics. High scoring team, shoot the three really, really well. I mean, you mentioned Morehead State being top 25. I think BYU shoots at least half, like it's 50%, and maybe even higher of their field goal attempts come from long distance. So it's a team that is battle tested, playing in the Big 12. Has a couple of nice wins on their resume. They beat Iowa State in Provo. They went on the road and won at Kansas. They beat San Diego State, the non-cons. That's a dangerous team, and one that you can't say with certainty that Illinois would take down. I wonder how BYU would get stops against Illinois, but of course there is kind of that back and forth where Illinois is going to have to show up defensively and be able to guard them as well. So that would be a highly entertaining, high-scoring game. In comparison, I think that it's better than what we were maybe talking about a couple weeks ago. We said, hey, Illinois and Kentucky in the second round of having to do that. Saw where Kentucky ended up there on the 3 line with Illinois. So I would say it's a positive that the Illini aren't squaring up with that one. But BYU's no matchup to scoff at. Would be tough, but I would lean Illinois. I pick Illinois because of I think they got Terrence Shannon. I think their offense is a little bit better than BYU's, even though they're both really, really good. And I don't know how BYU stops them.
And I've seen people there kind of talk about, you got UConn's bracket, dang it. Or you got Iowa State as your 2 seed because they were in the potential running for a 1 seed. Listen, at some point you got to play people. At some point you're probably going to have to play some outstanding teams to get to the Elite Eight and the Final Four. But let's get somebody who actually knows way more about these teams. I called on Isaac Trotter from 24/7 Sports, national writer for 24/7 Sports. Isaac, what's up, man? What'd you think of Illinois in that Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, I mean, what a game, right? Just haymakers back and forth down the stretch. I thought Illinois showed a lot of maturity, find a way to get over the hump there. Max Klesman hit some really big shots, and Illinois just finds a way. This team just feels inevitable. And, I've talked about it all year long. It feels like you kind of need to score 90 to beat Illinois, and Wisconsin couldn't get there. And that's going to play again in March. That's like the magic number for me moving forward.
All right, first blush, should Illinois fans be nervous about 14 seed Morehead State? Clark Kellogg was building them up there in the selection show.
Yeah, I don't see it. This is a team that really struggled against 3 of the best high majors it played against all year. I think Illinois matches up really well with them. Illinois has a bunch of size. In the OVC, this was one of those leagues where I felt like Little Rock was the team to be scared of out of that conference just because they had a bunch of transfer down guys. They have like an Arkansas transfer down, one of the Mitchell brothers, pretty familiar face to a lot of people. He had gone down and just dominated. And, Morehead State was able to get past them in the conference tournament and make it there. But, they gave Indiana a run, but any of those really, really good high major teams with the pulse completely took care of business with them in non-conference play. And if Illinois plays their way, I think they'll be fine too.
Isaac, I don't want to look past Duquesne and say it's a foregone conclusion that BYU is going to win that game. But you and I know we had you on the radio a few weeks ago, and I just mentioned it there that we were forecasting, what would Illinois and Kentucky look like? Well, we don't have to worry about that. Kentucky's joining Illinois as a 3, but this could be another race to 90 with the Cougars and the way that they can shoot the 3. What do you make of that potential matchup and for the shot to go to a Sweet 16?
Yeah, they play a lot of high variance games all year. They shoot so many threes. I think they're second in the amount of 3-pointers that they take per their overall shots. So if you're looking at it from an Illinois standpoint, Illinois is really good at taking away the threes. Sometimes they struggle to get stops, but for the most part, they've done a good job of limiting those attempts. If you're looking for the cons of it, BYU will get you in transition, and Illinois' transition defense has been really, really leaky at times. So matching up in transition and locking in on who your guy is huge. But BYU kind of plays 2 different styles. Sometimes when their big man Ali Khalifa is in, the Charlotte transfer, they're kind of like a 5-out team. And then they bring in their big boy in the middle, Traore, and they go into like a 4-out, 1-in. So you're kind of have to prepare for 2 different things. But Illinois kind of is ready for that because when you go 5-out, Illinois has the 5-out. When you go 4-out, 1-in, Illinois can play that too if they put in Dane Danger. But the biggest thing too is we talk about BYU's transition offense. Their transition defense stinks. And that's a glaring red flag for Illinois because I think Terrence Shannon's going to be able to have some free rides in transition. Yes, you need to get to 90 to beat Illinois. BYU can do that, but I think Illinois gives them way more issues on the other end than BYU's defense gives Illinois.
Isaac, I've been saying my prayers about Boston for a few weeks now. Get the wish. Hope that we're there to see it. Sweet 16, TD Garden. I would imagine that if Illinois is there, they're probably facing Iowa State. You've gotten a closer look at them than we have. How good are the Cyclones? And then if Illinois were to win that, do you imagine – I assume that it's UConn for sure in the Elite Eight, but what do you make of just Iowa State and then the region as a whole of what it could look like if Illinois does get to that second weekend, Sweet 16.
Yeah, Iowa State's playing its best basketball of the year right now. They're a really, really good connected team. But I think if you look at stylistically, Iowa State reminds me a little bit of Northwestern defensively, where they love to trap the post a lot. Like that's kind of their thing. Illinois put 90 up on Northwestern twice when they tried to do that. So I'm not sure a trap everything defense is the right way to go against a team where you have Marcus Damask and Coleman Hawkins who can really make plays off of that. I thought Illinois in scramble mode was pretty good. So that's, if you're kind of looking that up, like that's one matchup to keep an eye on. But the thing with Iowa State too is offensively, they have some real lulls that have been issues. Taman Lipsey's been pretty beat up right now, which is a real factor, but Keyshawn Gilbert has really started to settle in and they can kind of get it from everybody. Sometimes it's Curtis Jones who's transferred in and he can do it. They're bigs. I wouldn't say any of them are going to wow you with their stats or wow you. Like if they hit the portal, I don't think they're going to have 17 high majors knocking down their doors to give them a huge usage rate, but they're physical, they're tough, they're connected. Milan Momcilovic is a big time prospect for them that he just makes tough shots. Like Illinois wants to force tough twos. Momcilovic will make them because he's so big and so tall and can hit fadeaways over just about everybody. And they're a pretty big front court. They'll play three guys who are 6'8" or taller pretty much at all times to go along with their small guards. So yeah, you got to beat somebody great if you want to make it to the Elite Eight. But Iowa State, I wouldn't say, like, if you're looking at some of these teams on the two line, like the fact that Iowa State traps a post seems like it feels like a pretty solid matchup for Illinois, and Illinois is bigger than them too at, all five spots. And Illinois doesn't really struggle to score. And Iowa State, we've seen time and time again, they have 1 4-minute scoring drought. That's kind of a problem against Illinois at times.
Isaac, I'm going to put you on the spot. How far you got them going in this bracket?
I had them in the Elite Eight, honestly, at the first time I looked at it. Like I like the draw. I just got done writing the best draws and the worst draws. Like, I don't know how you don't look at that draw as like a win, because Illinois is going to go into BYU or Morehead State with the two best players on the floor. Illinois is going to go into BYU with the two best players on the floor. Illinois is going to go into Iowa State with the two best players on the floor. That's the path. Like, you got to have dudes to win in March. Illinois has two of them. And, I just don't know if any of these teams can really, really slow them down.
Isaac, so the confetti falls, we see the East region, we go and do interviews. So I'm just looking at a bracket right now. What were some of your surprises? What were some of your biggest takeaways from this bracket? Because it looks like the committee is getting criticized a little bit more than usual, recently at least.
Yeah, it's in the East region for sure. The first thing that popped out is, my God, we have two of the top 4 teams on KenPom are going to probably meet in the Sweet 16, and UConn and Auburn. Like, that's nasty business right there, because that Auburn team is really, really, really good, and they get a 4 seed.
How about Auburn upsetting UConn and Illinois against Bruce Pearl for a Final Four? Let's do that.
Look, people are just going, oh, I don't want to be in UConn's quadrant or region. Like, that's a huge game. That's a huge game, and Auburn is tough as nails. Like, I mean, I wonder what the spread's going to be for that game. Like, UConn will be favored. I don't think they're going to be favored by like 9. Like, that's going to be, a 4.5 point spread that could easily go the other direction with an Auburn team that's really talented. So that was my first impression when I looked at that East region. It's like, holy crap, like Auburn, that's a tough draw for them because they're a really, really good one. Really, really good team. And to get a 4 seed, that's rough.
Isaac, any changes after coming off the Big Ten tournament and what you think about this conference? Wisconsin obviously picking things up here, and they played well enough to win the Big Ten tournament championship today. What do you think about their prospects? Nebraska, I know that was a team that we talked about with you a few weeks ago that felt like could make some noise. I know in that 9 seed range is really, really tough, but anything changed for you, positive or negative, with the Big Ten tournament on this conference?
I hate the draw for Wisconsin. Hate it. And they've been playing really, really well right now. But James Madison in the first round sucks. Like, that's a rough game to go up against. Wisconsin, what's the problem with their defense all year? It's shots at the rim. What does James Madison love to do? Drive the basketball to the rim constantly. And so that's going to be a brutal matchup, especially for James Madison team. Like, we saw them beat Michigan State early. So Wisconsin's playing well. But if they make it through to the Sweet 16 by beating James Madison and probably beating Duke, who's the number 1 team in the preseason, they will have earned it. Michigan State, don't hate their draw, actually, to be honest. If you look back at the history of it, North Carolina has struggled with lead guards. Michigan State's strengths in the backcourt. So if you're kind of looking at that, maybe that's the right matchup for them in that 1-9 game, but Mississippi State will be tough. Nebraska, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they got the Texas A&M draw. That's tough too. So Texas A&M can really fill it up. Wade Taylor's awesome. Tyrese Radford is awesome. But again, that Nebraska team feels like they're trending in the right direction because their defense is really, really good. I'm just a little bit worried because we saw Illinois give them a ton of trouble on the offensive glass. That's something that Texas A&M is phenomenal at, the best offensive rebounding team in college basketball. So I like the Michigan State draw better than I like the Nebraska draw. Wisconsin got a brutal draw. Again, it just feels like we're probably going to see two teams from the Big Ten in the Sweet 16 again.
Try to give me one team you love going into this NCAA tournament.
Going back to Creighton, that Creighton train has been good for me for a while, and they're really, really good. I love the draw too for them. You know, this is a team that you're probably playing South Carolina or Oregon. Oregon struggled to score at times this year. South Carolina struggled to score at times this year. They both play a lot of deep drop coverage. Like, that's not necessarily the best thing against the team in Creighton who can really shoot the cover off the ball. And it's another 3 seed, right? Like with a decent sized matchup here where, you know, if you're Creighton and you're potentially playing Tennessee in that Sweet 16 game, like that's not going to be easy, but Creighton's battle tested and ready with 3 great guards and Ryan Kalkbrenner, who's awesome as well. And I like the teams that have been there and done that in those big games. And that core has been in huge games throughout their career, and I think that another deep run's probably on the way.
Trotter, I see you wearing the Bears hat. We got to cheer up our boy Piper here, man. Rough weekend for him with the Ollie Marmol extension, and then followed by his boy Justin Fields getting traded for a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, that's sad. I'm sorry, Pipes. To be honest, I don't think it was ever a conversation, though. I thought it was Caleb Williams all the way. Good on the Bears for giving him a great chance to win the starting job with Russell Wilson. I mean, is anybody scared of Russ anymore? I don't think so. Justin Fields is definitely better than him.
I'm still sad. Just too sad to talk about it.
I don't blame you.
Trotter, you're the goods, man. I know you're busy today, so hey, we appreciate you jumping on here and giving us some great insight, man. You're killing it. If anybody wants to know anything about college basketball, Isaac Trotter is the guy to go to at 24/7 Sports. Thanks, Trotter.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Great stuff, as always, from Isaac Trotter, getting some insight. He watches so much college basketball, man. He's killing it. I'm so proud of what he's doing with 24/7 Sports. I'm glad we get to take advantage of it in our company, Derek. He's all over it, man.
I know him and I both love synergy. But I focus usually just on Illinois and their opponents, man. Just his reach and ability to have so much knowledge about the landscape is really impressive. And, yeah, he's doing big things for the national team. So shout out to our guy.
Yeah. All right. Do we got anything else we want to hit on here, Piper, before we get out of here? I appreciate everybody for joining us. Domas turnovers got me worried, especially if they catch a team that knows how to press or half court. Yeah, Wisconsin pestered him into 5 turnovers tonight. Certainly the up and downs of I thought that was a really good play by Wisconsin trying to wear him out, but in the half court, once he got there, he was unstoppable. But yeah, that pressure full court makes him work for it, Derek.
Right. Yeah. It's something that we know a lot of the offenses run through him, and he's not a natural point guard. I'd say he's a pretty good ball handler given the size and the ask that Illinois has put on his plate this year. But I'll have to look into more of some of these opponents. But when you just look on paper, and I know we're fast forwarding to the Sweet 16 potentially, but Iowa State's the number 1 defense in the country. They're number 2 in the country in forcing turnovers. That is one thing without a natural point guard that I would wonder about. I'd wonder about if they could heat Illinois up and make those turnovers be something that can really burn them at the wrong time. So don't want to put the cart before the horse in terms of already getting to Boston and whatnot. But I think that, yeah, with Iowa State being that top-notch defense and being good at taking the ball away, I wonder about that with Illinois. And that'd be a fair question if we get there.
Guys, realize we beat 3 red teams. We made 3 second-half comebacks from over 10 points or more and beat 3 teams playing their best ball of the season. It's a phenomenal weekend. What did encourage you the most, Derek, about how they played this weekend?
I mean, with Terrence to be in this mode at this time of year is special. It's something that over recent weeks we haven't worried about him being an alpha, a guy that can play at this level. But I mean, you had the stat. What is it? Is it 9 of the last 12? They scored 25 plus. So that's big time stuff. You want him feeling feeling this momentum, feeling like he can take this team on a run, and he's going to be one of the potential game changers of the tournament. So there's that for sure. I think just getting it from different spots too. I think that's a characteristic of a team that doesn't need just two guys, and if one is off and their season's done, like having Dane step up in that game, having Luke in another game, letting Ty Rodgers making some differentiating plays. So this team can hit you with different things. That depending on matchup, depending on who has momentum on a given night, they can fill in the gaps. So that's what I am encouraged by. Would I like to see Justin Harmon figure it out a little bit? Yes, maybe his time will come. Maybe if not, then you'll maybe adjust your rotations depending on that. But I think to have Dane come along, to have Luke come along, just like to see Coleman play a little bit better on the whole. But for the most part, to piece this together, this championship together, you had to get it not only just with Shannon, but around him. I think for the most part, you got to feel good about how that came this weekend.
Shout out to Dre Gibbs-Allhorn for that ridiculous elevation and sick reverse layup. That was a big moment for Illinois. They needed a bucket, and he went and got it. So kudos to him being ready, and he does provide some energy and effort and some tenacity defensively. So kudos to all those guys off the bench this week. It was usually only one or two guys every game, but that can make the difference in these tournament games, and Illinois is definitely going to need that. Feel humble, man. 700 plus people watching this live. We appreciate you guys. This was a fun weekend of watching this high-level basketball, and we try to cover the heck out of it for you. And I hope you've enjoyed the content. We got plenty more coming. We'll have player grades. We got plenty of stories coming from this. Spring football is starting this weekend, and we're heading to Omaha on Tuesday. So we'll get back, see the family for about 18 hours, and then head out to Omaha. But we'll have your coverage 3 deep. And right now, for all you guys, 50% off a VIP membership. That support means more than anything. We appreciate the support on the YouTube, on the podcast, all of that. But become a VIP member, and we'll give you the best coverage there is on your team. So we got plenty in the tank right now of what happened after that Big Ten championship game and what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament. Derek, any final thoughts here?
Selection Sunday, man. It's what a great time of year. Great basketball. Nice draw for Illinois. Lots to play for. This is what we want. This is what we want to cover. This is what fans want. And you can just see the look in their eye of those guys in the locker room that this is what they've been eyeing. And there's a confidence about them playing this type of basketball this time of year. So I can't wait for Thursday. I do look forward to going home and saying hi to my kids real quick and my wife. Shout out to her. But, yeah, let's keep the momentum rolling.
This is an important thing. You're a smart man. Shout out to our wives who deal with this, because March is ridiculous. Without their support, we are not able to do this and really do our dream job. Without all you guys, we are not able to do our dream job. So thank you to all you guys for doing that. And hopefully you appreciate the work we put into it, the effort we put into it, because Derek and Joey and I have had some late nights here. I appreciate Derek and Joey for giving me their all and all of that. So we got plenty more. We'll see how long this journey lasts. And I know we appreciate it over the last couple of years, even if it ended short in the NCAA tournament. Covering NCAA tournament games, man, it just has a different feel to it. So thank you all for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcast. If you're on the YouTube channel, hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit that notifications bell as well. We got plenty more coming up at Illini Inquirer. Everybody have a great weekend, rest of it. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.